Earlier report that Gaddafi might outgun us, but he will not outnumber us, and his forces do not have the determination that we have.
Do you want outside help?
Yes, specific help. Specific help. A no-fly zone is long overdue, and selective surgical strikes, I think, are called for.
A prominent U.S. senator has said direct military interventions, such as targeted airstrikes, would be counterproductive. Instead, John Kerry said the international community should prepare a no-fly zone in the event of a massacre of civilians by the Libyan Air Force.
1, prepare a no-fly zone in conjunction with our allies, not implement it. Certainly, first hope would be, if it were called on, to be done only in the context of international agreement and sanction. But right now they don't want that, and I think that's good. The last thing we want to think about is any kind of military intervention, and I don't consider the fly zone stepping over that line. We don't want troops on the ground. They don't want troops on the ground. That would be counterproductive.
Well, much of the military equipment needed to enforce a no-fly zone is already in position on the Mediterranean island of Malta. James Bass is there.
These aircraft are NATO's eyes and ears. The AWACS is packed with the most sophisticated cameras, surveillance and monitoring equipment. NATO maintains these planes are working as part of a counter-terrorism mission which has been in place since 9/11. But that mandate is a pretty broad one, checking on suspicious aircraft and ships. And in recent days, they've been tracked constantly in the skies near Libya. They've been showing particular interest in this Libyan aircraft, part of Colonel Gaddafi's VIP fleet based at Mytika near Tripoli. The plane, a Falcon 900, which flew from Belarus last week, was this weekend returning from Jordan. This recording was made of the radio communications with air traffic controllers in Malta.
NATO 07, go ahead.
Do you have any information on an aircraft with the squawk 2017 position about 85 miles east of our?
7, that should be a Falcon 900, flight level 340 with a destination Mytika according to FlightNet.
Malta's airport has been hosting planes from at least 7 NATO nations. In the island's main harbour, a South Korean destroyer which has been evacuating workers from Libya. Military vessels from a number of NATO countries are just off the coast. With AWACS spy aircraft overhead and a fleet of Western naval vessels offshore, there is concern here in Malta, an EU nation, but one that prizes itself on its neutrality. A former Prime Minister of Malta told me he doesn't believe Western powers when they say they're only here to evacuate their nationals.
They cannot be trusted because if I were in their place, I would exploit the opportunity I have of the strategic position to spy and to do all that is necessary in preparation of any military attack. So it's not a question of evacuation only. They are exploiting also the circumstances for their own ends.
It's adding to concern here that this island's neutrality is slowly being eroded. James Bays, Al Jazeera, Malta.
Okay, we're now joined on the line by a Benghazi activist, Abu Sadr. Abu Sadr, thank you very much for speaking to us. Now, Benghazi has been the center of the opposition's stronghold. That's also where the National Council is. How concerned are you that government forces are going to take away that area?
I think for the time being, we know that the government forces are not going to come into Benghazi unless they have an Air Force attack. We have our people are based on Ijabia right now, and that's our first defense line for the people for the city of Benghazi. And the people over here are very relaxed, and they know we are, at least in the time being, safe from any attacks on the ground, unless, like what I said, an Air Force attack. And that's the only thing that we have no defense for.
But there are plenty of other areas where the rebel fighters are struggling against the government forces. Which areas do you think are key that needs to remain within the opposition forces?
Remain within the opposition forces is right now whatever like cities between Brega and Ras Lanouf, those cities are the most sensitive cities because they are the closest to the Gaddafi forces. Right now, Ras Lanouf is the last city that the revolution got control over, and that's one of the most sensitive cities for us.
And how are the rebel forces defending themselves in Ras Lanouf and, as you say, in Benghazi? What kind of firepower do they have to fight against the army?
Most of the fire or the weaponry that they have is very, very light weaponry. You're talking about like personal like weapons like small guns and clashings and stuff like that. Recently, we just tried to enforce them with some anti-craft weapons, but those are not they're not like an advanced weaponry. They're just manned by men. They do not have any satellite or any radar to detect like aircraft or anything like that. So that's, I believe, the most heavy weaponry they have over there. So you're talking about people, they do not have any real like weapons against the Gaddafi, where he's coming with tanks, with like Air Force attacks and missionaries that with like a lot of weapons and very heavy weaponry.
Okay, Abu Sadr, Benghazi activist, thank you so much for talking to us. Now, several British Special Forces soldiers have been released after their capture by opposition forces in eastern Libya. Hoda Abdelhamid has more on the reaction to their presence in the country.
It's very difficult for anyone here to believe that these 8 British nationals were actually on a diplomatic mission, for the simple reason that they landed in the middle of the night by helicopter in a little town south of Benghazi. They had with them a whole lot of equipment, according to our sources: computers, maps, weapons and explosives. They were immediately intercepted by rebels and the residents of that area and handed over to authorities in Benghazi. Now, the National Council here in Benghazi says it had no idea that these 8 British nationals were on Libyan soil until they were handed over. They said that no one had told them about a diplomatic mission coming into the country.
The way they came in was inappropriate. They came into the country in the wrong way. We arrested them as soon as they touched the Libyan soil. For someone to just come in like that through the air without any permission